stream to YouTube. And
Put your name over Wellington's, yeah. You don't want to be Dave.
Gotta bring out a notebook.
we are good to go.
Okay.
Call the tour.
I need the gavel.
Just sat there.
All right, we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll do the call to order.
Yeah.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, we'll call the meeting to order. Do we have old business?
We have just to go through the roll call in terms of individuals who are present. So we have Taylor Sufton.
Present.
Blake Harris is absent. Darlene Walk.
Present.
Valerie Cruz, absent. Anthony Harris had communicated me today that he was going to be absent. Greg Peugeot.
Here.
Alexandra Esposito is absent. Kirsten Pugh.
Here.
And we have our ex officio members, Chief Oliver and Chief D'Amico. All right, so if you all had an opportunity, the first thing on the agenda was the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. Did you all get an opportunity to review those?
Yes.
All right.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries.
All right. Next up on the agenda is the nomination and election of officers. So when we, the last time we met, our chairperson, who's the former head of the NAACP, Mr. Darrell Murphy, had moved out of the state, and so that Vice Chair Taylor kind of flowed into that role. But in every year that we have to have the election and nomination of officers, so the nomination and election of officers. And so at this time, I think that we have a quorum, but I would lean on the Vice Chair's guidance here to see, do you feel that do we want to have that election officers here at this time with these individuals, or do we want to try to get the collection of the entire body here?
Do we have another meeting in December?
Yes, one in December.
Can we maybe plan it for, do we have to? I don't know.
It needs to be done going into the next year, so if, at your discretion, if you want to table that until that meeting, until where we can get together as the entire body and have that availability to be able to do that going forward.
Is that okay with the rest of the members?
That works for me.
Okay. Let's do that. We'll table that till the next one then.
All right, excellent, excellent. So what I wanted to do here with this is to give you all a update on where we are with our DEI strategic plan. So this is just a high-level update that we have put together just to give you all some feedback. When initially the plan came out, we did give an overview of the plan by the 4 pillars with the big, long printout, and so we just wanted to make sure that we gave you all an opportunity to get an update. So before we dive into the specifics of it, just a quick review is that the DEI strategic plan was built on 4 pillars. That is culture, and so that was the goal for the culture pillar, was to ensure that leaders at all levels promote the vision and business case for DEI by taking actions to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workforce and maintain an inclusive workplace. The second pillar was career. So that was recruit, hire, and develop a diverse, high-performing workforce that reflects the community that we serve, was the overarching goal for that pillar. The third pillar was the community pillar, and so that was encouraging DEI and Sandusky business activities and with the business community at large, and to foster diversity and inclusion in community communications and celebrations. And last but not least was the consistency pillar, which was to ensure the city of Sandusky has a comprehensive approach to DEI. We need to be transparent in our actions and report out results. So looking at the culture pillar is unique in that a lot of the initiatives, or we take the structure in our strategic plan as you have your goals, outcomes, outputs, right? Outputs are the actions, the little things that we do on the day-to-day, month-to-month basis that help bring those outcomes to life. And as those outcomes collaboratively will make you achieve your goals, and your outcomes are basically the measures that you measure for success. And so that first one in training and support was benchmarking ourselves versus other municipalities and government entities for best practice in preventing and addressing discrimination, retaliation, implementing DEI leadership training, and successful employee engagement. As you can see, this one is at 50% because a lot of this training and support is buried within the career pillar. So the success of this particular initiative in the culture piece, because culture is something that starts from the top and flows down in terms of that, and a lot of people have a hard time defining culture in terms of organizations. But it is a collection of behaviors and activities that people do on a day-to-day basis that creates culture. It's the behaviors that create culture. And so what you want to do in terms of our career and our culture as organizational overall is the collectively successfully implementing a lot of the other initiatives will help bring that part to life. So we have a training plan with specific attendees, workshops, types and approaches, educational frameworks, and a timeline built out, and I'll dive into a little bit more of that in the career pillar. In customizing this tool, so this is one of the things that we still have to do is that the Government Alliance on Racial Equity has a racial equity tool for local governments. And what we have been reviewing it and looking at, both myself and city manager, is how do we customize this tool to fit? It has budgeting in terms of community engagement and development, and it sounds complicated, but what it really is a system of questions that you ask yourself as you're going through budgeting, whether you're going through a community development project or an engagement event, of who are you impacting? Is there anything are there groups that you are impacting that you're not thinking about in this? And then exploring how you can do better. So it's those being intentional with those questions when we're doing planning, strategic planning, budget planning, engagement planning, of being thoughtful and intentional about what we're doing and how we're affecting people, and are there unintended consequences that we may not be aware of when we just decided to do something that we need to think about before going ahead and doing it. So that one's a little bit heavier lift. Culture of excellence, as that one's at 50%. So that inquires highlighting employees, projects, and promotions with internal and external communications. We've kind of gone forward with that internally with a newsletter, externally trying to do a newsletter. So these actions and things, although not perfect, it's the attempt at trying, because if doing nothing, I think, is trying and not being successful and learning from those attempts to try is better than not doing anything at all. And so we're improving upon that, getting better at that, looking at what works and what's not. That internal communication system in terms of leveraging Microsoft Teams that we can be more effective in our communications. The whole world went virtual, and that team emerged, that tool emerged as something that was. And so we did a deep dive with our administrative assistants and with our managers and supervisors to really learn how to leverage that to be more effective in our communication in that tool. Developing a social media schedule so that all departments are represented in external communications on a consistent basis. I think exposure and actually seeing behind the curtain, so to speak, does wonders in terms of community engagement and acceptance. And the greatest example of that was when Tom Horseman, our communications manager, got in the truck for the snowplows and drove around with them, and people could actually see what the experience was of a snowplow driver as they're going through that. And once you are able to see through the eyes of someone who is experiencing that, that raises the level of empathy that you'd be able to have for them, and they're doing their job. Organize employee engagement events to ensure groups across departments are able to form connections, build trust. So those things are manifest in celebrations like our employee golf outings and some employee celebrations that we do. It's really about Hey, there's folks over there in the service center. There's folks in the police department, in the fire department, here in City Hall. We may not all see each other on a day-to-day basis. And so you need to create intentional events for us to come together so that we're able to socialize in a positive way to build that cohesiveness across all of the entire organization, which is, like, I think, a critical, important aspect of culture. This is a little bit harder one in here, our structure for funding mechanism of ERGs or employee resource groups. Typically, these are affinity groups that you have in larger organizations. We're smaller, but I think that we can still be able to do this. It's just with a Sandusky spin on it, right? I think if you have an employee, a group of employees who love to swing the clubs, you can create an employee resource group around golfing or outdoors. If you got hunters or fishermen, people that love to do the outdoors, we can create resource groups around those particular affinities, the things that we have together that we share in various levels of our identities. It doesn't just have to be across racial and ethnic lines. You can create affinity and resource groups across the variety of social identities that we carry, I think, to help breed social cohesiveness amongst employees. And the embed piece, so we've updated the language in a lot of our documentation to reflect the DEI action plan, mission, vision, and values, and continue to identify documents and opportunities to evaluate and update. And as we go roll out our new website that I think the communications team and our city manager's offices are working on, you'll see more of that embedded into the website and into those documents. The city itself does not have mission, vision, and values overarching. And so what we hope is that the mission, vision, and values that we created for our DEI action team for that can help inform that in our next upcoming strategic plan process. And then you'll see it living in those documents. For me, coming from the private sector and nonprofit sector, mission, vision is like the utmost importance because it really drives what you do and how you do it. And so I think an overarching, I know some departments have missions and visions, but having an overarching one for the city of Sandusky as an organization is important. Broadcasting, so support and champion and implement DEI action plan community actions. So that is everything that's in the community pillar, just supporting and broadcasting and championing that. And that upcoming website, we will have a kind of a video feature from our DEI action team, employee team, and some other things that will be on that to help amplify that message. And last but not least, in the culture pillar is tracking. So we have research a variety of different platforms and kind of centered in on one that can create an analytics dashboard. I have a lot of data that I've been able to compile of our workforce composition and who we are. And I think that intentionally being able to highlight and show the community what we're doing and who we are as individuals will give I think a greater understanding of the individual people that make the collective of the city of Sandusky and who we are. Career pillar, yay! So what I have here is just not the entire career pillar. We would be here all evening, and I do not have all evening, and I don't think neither do you all. But if you really want to meet with me one-on-one, please, and I'll be able to go over each outcome and initiative in a more nuanced way. But these are just some of the things that we've made a lot of progress on over the past year that we've done this. Definitely competencies is a big one. So competencies are skills and abilities, right? And so when you look at a particular job and you want to do a job description, which this feeds into, you want to look at the overarching skills and abilities and the competencies and the zones for that make a person successful to do that, not necessarily can you add, can you subtract? Like when you look at core competencies, and we've been able to do this for every position in the city and every division across it, and I've created a document that for HR to be able to tie into, so when we get to that job descriptions, things that you see there, that's 50%, we'll be able to implement those. And what this has done is created, I think, job descriptions that are more inclusive, because you may not have a particular degree or certification in the area, but if you have the competencies, then that should show a person on the outside that, hey, I should apply for that job anyway, right? And that's what I think the big thing about utilizing competencies does. And also, too, it helps in evaluations, because now you're looking at, hey, you're evaluating someone on the core competencies of a role and not subjectively how you view them, and it helps make a more objective performance evaluation process. Another thing that we've 100% completed is our online application process. And so when I first applied, I applied on a paper application. That was in 2021. And I was like, what? But we've moved in and be able to utilize our online platform to make sure that we can effectively capture data. There was a project that we had to do for a water equity project where I had to look at the applications for people who had applied to our water department, water pollution control, water maintenance, sewer maintenance. They were all on paper. And I had to go one by one to kind of track the demographic information of the feed into this spreadsheet so that we could actually have a dashboard. This would not be an issue if we had online applications. And so we've moved towards that. Now, we do still keep paper applications in case somebody does not have either the access to technology or tools to be able to fill one out online. But we just want to upload that into the online system after it's filled out. And the DEI reflections and values, and my two gentlemen here were a part of that process. So in our cabinet meetings, we did a review of our DEI values. So that was, if I'm not mistaken, collaboration, innovation, service, safety, vulnerability, understanding, risk-taking, and stewardship. And what that looked like was once a meeting, we took a value, kind of gave out the definition that we had in our strategic plan, and then asking each individual as we went around the room, like, what does that mean to you, and how does that reflect in your work? And this particular task, the overarching outcome wasn't just a kumbaya share moment, but was to take the time to reflect and think about in terms of safety and service and stewardship. Like, how does that manifest in my work and what I do, and sharing that with the group. And in that, we learn more about each other, about our motivations, and about how we view our roles and how we do that as a group and as a core. And there was a great process, and Chief loved to share. Deepen the level of, pipelines to employment, This was all about deepening the level of participation in recognizing government as a key economic driver in employment. When you look at the census data, like there's, for public administration, there is a large deal of employees in our county that are in public administration. That includes, schools, government, and the like. And so recognizing that as a key economic driver and as a workforce sector is taking a little bit of time to get on the radar. But I think that we continue voicing and lobbying for that, because what you want to do is add that to industry sector partnerships. And these are collaborative public-private partnerships that will help us leverage tools and resources and funding to be able to create robust pipelines to employment for both us and other government entities.
Just with the pipelines to employment, because that is very interesting. I worked for the county for a long time, and I think the city's doing a great job with that, but is there a way to get that out there better? Like, because I think a lot of kids graduate high school, like, I guess I'll work at a factory, I'll go to the military, I'll go to college. Like, there's city, county, there's government too. I'm not saying like you have to go into government, but there's a place for that.
Yes.
And I don't think anybody thinks of that.
Yes, if you see right there, in terms of getting young people to have a level of awareness, part of that is that youth science piece right there. So that was an initiative by Firelands Forward, which we joined in on. Youth science was a portal that they did that measured your interest and your competencies in different jobs and roles. Because I think the gist of it was a lot of young people only know what they see. Like, I could be a teacher, I could be a firefighter, police officer, I could go to the military, because that's what they see. But what we did was matched up the roles that we have available with the competencies that exist in youth science. And so when someone scores high on those competencies for us that they may not have a level of interest or awareness in, we ding up as an employer, and they're guided to our website so they can see our openings and our abilities. But that's just a piece. right? That's just getting that pipeline from young people. There's also, I think, a almost no man's land of the 18 to 24-year-old opportunity youth that we need to focus and lean in harder on. And both myself and my good friend Nico over at ECADEC and McKenna and Filings Forward are looking at an initiative that actually specifically targets opportunity youth and not only jobs with us, but also focusing in on our industry sectors, removing barriers, giving them the opportunity to take active, engaging in career pathways that will give them sustainable wages, because that's the key. It's not just about entry-level jobs, it's about a career pathway that gets you on a sustainable wage that gets you there. And I think one of the big things in terms of equity in government is providing the on-ramp to help you get there. We cannot walk the path for you. We cannot do the work for you. But what we can do is open up pathways for individuals from that have a lot of barriers to be able to get in the game and be able to compete on a level playing field with individuals who may have less barriers to be able to do that.
Question here.
Go ahead.
How do you feel about former military personnel? They've done their time, they've done 20 years, they come back home. And the skills that they learned in the military may not actually pertain to what you think they do, but how do you fit them into society, back into society, and working with all the skills that they do have? And they do have quite a few skills, so how do you fit them into your programs here?
Great question. I think that, coming from a military family myself, that resonates with me strongly. And working with the former director of Filings Forward, David White, that was one thing that was top of mind, is how do we make sure that the level of awareness is there? And I think that bleeds into the competencies part of our job descriptions and focusing in on those competencies so that you may have done a job within the Army or the Air Force, right? Say you were a mechanic on jet airplanes, right? What were the skills and the competencies that you had that would allow you to translate that to working in the service center, helping a new police cruiser come through and uploading it with all the gadgets and technology that needs to be done? Like, those skills translate back and forth.
I'll add to that. We being police and fire, have service credit through the Civil Service Commission for military too. Whether you were a tank operator, you would still get credit for your service towards a job at the police department. Fire too, without speaking for you, you guys offer points?
Yeah, they get 20%
Yeah.
bonus on top of their score for having at least like a 2-year minimum in the military.
With a honorable discharge.
How about communications, those that are in communication and have served in communication? How do you fit them into your programs?
Interesting. I know that one of the variety of skills, so if there is a way for them to fit in a particular role and aspect, we will get them and matching those skills and abilities to that. If it's I think that for the administrative side, we don't have the civil service thing where we have the scores on our administrative applications, but that is something that I think sticks high on the list, and I think it manifests in one of our newer employees. I think she's been here for a year, Quinn, who is the admin assistant in community development. Her service in the Marine Corps in terms of what she was doing in there translated well in her work that she did after post-Marine Corps service that she did with, I think, a municipality in Oklahoma that translated to what she needed to do here with community development in that. So I think that is an overarching is recognizing, number one, that these individuals are in our community, and B, that please do apply. Please, you have the civil service side of things with police and fire, but then also in the administrative side and also in the rest of the jobs that we have in the city, your skills can be put to use, and you have a great opportunity to continue serving with the city. Great question.
All right.
Great question.
Thank you.
The other aspects of this are onboarding and the training platform. So onboarding, we have a checklist or a sheet of the different forms you have to sign and paperwork that you need to have to come in terms of your employment and your onboarding. But onboarding for me goes well beyond that. Right, onboarding is your first experience, I think, in developing culture in your career and imparting on that individual. And so we're working with HR, with communication to create some sort of package and experience that we can give employees to let them know and recognize it's an honor and privilege to work for the residents and the businesses of the city of Sandusky. And it's an honor and privilege to join this team no matter what area you may be in. And so from day one, as you come in and you're hearing that message and you're seeing the experiences of different employees and how that resonates with us, I think that's important, a big part of an onboarding package. Yes, it's important to have your W-9 filled out. It's important to have all your emails and stuff ready for your technology, but equally important is for individuals who come into our service to be able to hear from their fellow employees about what it means to be a City of Sandusky employee, and then also have them contribute to that themselves as they go in, so they understand, knowing this is not just a job, that this is a career, and a career in service, and who you are serving and who you are doing this for, I think is important, and that is enhancing our onboarding process. Last but not least in the career is the training platform. So we are utilizing the local government university. So it's a Lexipol tool that we've had that's digital. So it's able to reach our entire workforce. 75%, because we are 3/4 of the way through our first training program with that, and then we'll unleash it and allow it to be utilized just for any and all aspects that it's able to do. But the first one was diversity in the workforce. The second module was emotional intelligence. The third module was unconscious bias, and the last module that we have coming up in Q4 is generational differences. Being born in the late 1900s myself, and I'm starting to feel some of the generational differences that exist in the workforce. And this is a special time because we actually have 4 different generations that are active in the workforce, with our baby boomers, our Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Zs. And so there are interesting opportunities that arise when you have a multi-generational workforce, and so that's the last one that's going through right now. For me, we structured this in a way. Number one, the business case for diversity involves the learning case of diversity and diverse teams and the results that you're able to get from that. Second piece is the emotional intelligence part. So that's that 5 elements of self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, motivation, and social awareness, right? And learning about that is a key point in not just someone's career success in their career, but personal as well. And then layering on top of that, once you have that self-awareness and self-regulation, throwing in unconscious bias. We all have biases. It's how our brains operate and how we work. We work to make shortcuts. That's what biases are. And our brain wants to process all the information that we're getting, and it needs a way to do that, and it creates those things. And so if you have a level of awareness about this process and how this happens, it helps you mitigate your biases and how you work and how you operate on a day-to-day basis. I think that we got a lot more to do in terms of that training platform in terms of leadership and development, and I'm excited about how that manifests here in the future. The third pillar is community. As you can see, this is the one that we have a lot more work to do in. As we went through our city manager process, a lot of the community pieces is external. Now that City Manager Orzik is in place, he and I have met 2 times now. We've kind of worked out a timeline and plan to kick these things in gear because they were kind of in a holding pattern in terms of moving forward with that. The first one is with disadvantaged business enterprise ordinances. This is minority business enterprises, women business enterprises, and veteran business enterprises. And so creating standard language statements for RFPs and RFQs, researching municipal best practices for an incentivized process to equal the playing field for DBEs, and then actually connecting them to the larger business ecosystem that exists and the resources that exist for them to be able to scale and grow their businesses here in our community. I often hear, we have gaps to fill, and I think that our women and our veterans and our minority business enterprises can help fill some of those gaps. But what we need to do is, is those on-ramps and pathways to help them get into, move from my house or my crib or my kitchen into actually brick and mortar or the food truck or whatever it is in that legitimate business enterprise. And there's tools from the state of Ohio's Office of Development that's manifest in our embed work, where we brought them here from Cleveland to help work with folks who get certified. And for the veterans business enterprise, I think it's only just 15% of your workforce needs to be veterans, and you get access to the financing and the advantages of that. For the women in the minority business enterprises, we're talking 1.5% financing or 0% financing on 0% up to $40,000, 1.5% up to $1 million. In this time where we're looking at 7-8% on interest on loans from your traditional financing institutions, these are great opportunities, but they have to be certified. And so we have to work with these businesses in order to navigate this bureaucratic process to get them. And so that's that equity piece, man. You got to give people the tools to help to be successful in that.
I'm getting called away.
Gotcha.
I apologize.
No problem.
Are there questions for police or anything you want to
Chief's
talk
getting
about?
called away.
I apologize. All right, thank you.
No. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
The connection to the community piece is part of building a comprehensive plan with access to available resources for residents, i.e. Erie County's CARES, right? That's a website that exists and available that anyone can access and get connected to, or information about different social services. But a website is static, right? And you got to have access to the internet to be able to get to a website. And so the other part of this is working with nonprofits and community organizations, and we've done some groundwork in terms of a community hub. And what that is a resource center where individuals can come and get a human-centered, focused service that connects them to the resources that exist. And what you combine that with is a platform like, I think they did the presentation on Unite Us. So what that does is that, okay, so-and-so comes in for service looking for housing and stability. All right, I'm going to connect you to a shelter. I'm going to send that through in terms of the platform and process. And you get there, that person on that other end says, hey, so-and-so got here, and we're serving them. And so you've connected the dots and closed the loops to make sure people don't fall through the gaps. And I think that's the important purpose of community hubs. I manage a community hub in Cuyahoga County for young adults, for 18 to 24-year-olds in workforce development. We were not the end point for where they were going. But what we did is we assessed them, gave them some just baseline case management services, some digital literacy, and while they were waiting in a holding pattern to get connected to a provider for career training, they were with us. And we made sure that it was a soft human handoff to make sure that we were working with individuals in the 5-provider network. And so this can work here. We have a smaller population, so the scale is not just specifically for one thing like workforce development. We can create a community hub that will connect individuals for all types of resources for social services, right? And that's part of deepening our connections to the community and the connections with our community partners that deliver social service resources. Meeting in the community. So meeting in non-traditional places outside of City Hall. I love this wonderful meeting room right here, but not everybody can make it down here, or not everybody feels comfortable coming here. And so sometimes we need to meet people where they're at. And that was manifest in our Southside plan, where we did a lot of the community engagement at Mills. We went out into the community. We did invite some people in here to City Hall to do engagement as well, but most of it was done in the community, in the Southside, where those people were at. And so I think taking that learning and taking that action, taking this thing and going and utilizing, cut, paste, repeat in everything that we do. We can't just be static here inside of City Hall. We have to take it out. And it also manifests in our Economic Development Incentive Committee for our grants, for our business grants. We went into the community and had an event after hours where we invited potential entrepreneurs and current entrepreneurs to come learn about the grant process. And it was a packed room, and they had lots of questions. And from that, you had people who may not have apply for the grants. And what that shows is that we got to get out. We got to get out and go to the people in order to make sure that not only they're getting the information and they're comfortable in that space, but we can answer questions to close the gap in understanding, right? I understand what all the language is when I read the applications. Everyone may not, and they may not understand the acronyms that are used. And so having a real life person here for you is important. And last but not least, I'll end on this. Before we did finalizing some more things for the Southside plan, I went out to the MacArthur Park community and sat in the living rooms and talked to the people there to kind of express to them like what this program and what this process means and what the aims are, right? And getting their feedback, hearing their stories right there in their living rooms, right there on their front porches. And what you got was an uncensored, unfiltered view of how they view things, which was valuable for me, I think, in giving feedback here to make sure that the plan was the best that it could be. Programming. So this is looking at summer programming, year-round programming. Specifically with summer, we want to explore a variety of promoters to explain the selection of artists to book. Also conducting community engagement to get feedback from residents. I have a good time, especially this year. Shout out to the Santana cover band, because I was grooving at that, and that Earth, Wind, and Fire cover band from the Lane Trust. Woo, fire. But we want to make sure that the community has a voice in this as well, right? So we have the ability to do and conduct community surveys, and so let's get that out there. Get the opinion, and then implement that opinion in what we're doing, and expand the circle in terms of people that we are working with to be able to get different types of acts and artists to come in and perform at USA Today's Best Coastal Small Town.
How about local talent that you do have here?
Oh, yes. Local talent. We on YouTube right now. Local talent, stand up. Like we want to give a platform to local talent and to local entities that are able to do that. So making sure that Mr. Whirling, our recreation superintendent, who kind of leads those efforts, getting on that radar and connecting with him, I think is a great first step in getting that and bringing that to life. But there's no better place to look than right at your own front door in terms of talent.
Exactly.
They're starting to do bands and so forth, dancing. A lot of groups are coming forward at the farmers market each Saturday, and one Saturday each month they are showing local talent at the farmers market.
Love it.
So the art commission's really been working with them.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's aware I'm part of the J-Marks.
Yeah.
So people were asking me, why weren't we down at the band? I said, well, nobody asked us. So I am taking a sabbatical. I'm taking a little hiatus now since I'm president of NACP. Got a lot of things going on right now, but we will be back.
Okay. Listen, closed mouths don't get fed, so now that you done said it, don't be surprised when you get that knock on the door. We're gonna have to come out that sabbatical.
We're ready. We're ready. Whenever you're ready, we're ready.
Awesome. One of the other ones is DEI and procurement. So examining our procurement methods for contracts, and also advocating and looking at social commitments in development. Social commitments are development centered projects where you look for developers who are developing things in the community to give back to the community in some sort of way, whether that's through employment or other aspects. For me, the math works out. If I got a project and I got 100 people working on a project and 15% of that can come from the city of Sandusky, I want that. If you want a subcontract with a business that's from here, the city of Sandusky, helping to build Sandusky, I want that. I want that for our people. I want that for our businesses. And so if we are going to be be doing big things. And because we're a small town, doesn't mean we can't do big things. And most developers are used to doing this anyway that come from metropolitan areas. And so it's not a heavy lift. And once you build into that, if they make good faith efforts and they can't find it, that's cool. You waive it. But you can't, it doesn't mean that you don't try to embed social commitments in development ideas. And so it's just advocating for that and trying to make sure that we are doing the best that we can to prepare our community to be able to take advantage of those opportunities when they come up. Because you got to have the talent and the skills, and it has to be the good talent and skills. You want people
Is
to.
there a tool that the city can use to kind of hold their feet to the fire on that? Because, I mean, I do have a background in construction, and I don't see anybody I know working on any of these buildings they're working on.
The tool is in the development deals.
Okay.
Yeah, right. And so you write that into it, and that becomes part of it. But then you have to be realistic though, and you have to be able to give developers showing good faith efforts to be able to find the talent. So if I'm looking I got an electrical project and I've beat down every bush. I've knocked on these doors. I've made these phone calls. I've connected with these organizations, and then we know that there are electrical companies here, and like we can follow up and like, hey, did they actually contact you? So we can actually do our due diligence on our side to make sure that it's actually happening. But if they can't, if our electrical companies are contracted out already and they're busy, we don't want to stall development. So you allow them to be able to get a waiver for that. But what the tool is embedding it within the development deals, and that's how it's done. And I think that's a good part in both workforce development and economic development for our local area. Our communication methods, and so exploring the methods of communications and visual maps. Our GIS professional, Tiffany, and I have been looking at various ways to leverage GIS. She did a presentation to the City Commission, and I think it gave a good idea of it. But what we can go a lot further, looking at some proof of concepts from other cities and how they utilize GIS, I think is important. So things like construction projects, you can put the map online, public facing. And with project updates, we get updates, you can put the updates on the map. And so now people can look at it like, oh, okay, it's changing in real time, because we have the tools in terms of the technology to be able to update. And we're updating it anyway for ourselves internally. Just turn it around and let the public face it. And so with programs and events, with construction, with procurement, all these different things, we're tracking this information. So it's best to kind of like turn it around and let people like have a comprehensive look. And so it kind of levels things like innuendos and I thought I heard and this, like, no, yeah, this is what it is. It'll be done in a week and a half, right? Oh, there was an issue. They hit on a water line. Okay, now we know it's going to be 2 weeks now. So it enhancing our communication methods, going just beyond legal ads, right? And what we have to do. And I will say this, that we do a lot in terms of being transparent and trying to get information out, and not saying that we are not good at that, but you can always be better. We can always leverage new tools to be more comprehensive in that. And that's what this is about. Deepening relationships and removing barriers. Deepening relationships is all about our community partners, our school system, our nonprofits, our county partners. We want to deepen the relationships both on the high level, the executive level, and both on the operational level. That's manifested in our Southside plan with the health department and the health improvement zones and the funds that they were able to contribute to that to be able to do Churchwell Park. It's manifest in the work that we do with the Sandusky City School System in both the recruiting and retention meetings and things of that nature. It's manifest in our nonprofits with the State Theater, with the Center for Cultural Awareness, with all of our community groups. I think that we need to have a deep personal relationship with them in order to do the best that we can as the city government, and where we are weak, they are strong, and where they have opportunities, we can step in and be strong in that. And it's just a matter of formalizing that and removing barriers in terms of attendance to meetings, in terms of being able to stay up to date. Like that concept in terms of removing barriers, it's about, first you got to look at what are the barriers and measure. You can't address what you do not know, and what you do not know, what you don't track and measure. So tracking and measuring like attendance, and then asking people what's getting in the way of you coming to meetings, and then removing the barriers for helping people to do that. Last but not least, consistency. So it's reporting out. We have, going through our program evaluation for our first year for the DEI strategic plan implementation, we chose a format in terms of a formative evaluation. That is an evaluation format that looks at the implementation process and how you check and adjust and how you can improve, and are collecting much of the data. We have our internal survey out. We need to do our organizational assessment. We've done the deep dive in terms of data for our demographics, and so that will compile itself in a report that we will publish to the public, to be able to see and track on how we're going. And it's year over year. You got to keep doing it. You got to keep showing people the progress and what you're doing, because this is a marathon, not a race. In terms of both employee workforce and plus of the community aspects of it, this is not snap your fingers and this will be something that will happen. This is an intentional and long-term effort that we are embarking upon in order to make sure that we have the most robust relationships with our community and development in all aspects, and then also that we are the employer of choice in terms of employment. Employee engagement is definitely that thing that we want to do. We have our survey that we do for our data gathering for this, but there's also the employee engagement side of things, and making sure that we are listening to our employees and we understand where the gaps are, and arming our leaders with tools to be able to address those gaps. And so that means a constant communication pipeline between all employees of all levels in our government. State and local grant spending, and so we get money from the federal government, from the state government, in grants and terms, i.e. CDBG, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding on how it's spent. And so I think that we can do better in terms of communicating the rationales and the reasonings behind how some of our dollars are allocated and that we spend, and letting people know and showing, using visual maps to see where these investments have been made, and so that the narratives that you may see and hear may not stand up to the actual investments once you put it out there. But if you don't give information out, if you don't show people, then they are left to create their own narratives. And I think that it's important for us to get out that information out, because we have it. And this is about giving it out. When you look at CDBG, OGO, when you look at our programs we do with Meals on Wheels, looking at the programming you do with, I think, Father's Heart, and the other opportunities for people to do social programming, and then the infrastructure investments in the streets, in the homes, and improving the neighborhoods that's been done all over the city. One thing can lead to the other. The use of visual maps, I think, will be an important tool in getting that information out there. And so we're working towards that right now. And last but not least is the organizational assessment. We have a DEI organizational assessment that is given year over year over year, so that we can track our progress, where we're going from just compliance to actually a high level of integrated DEI core principles in the work that we do, that is living in the work that we do. That's not just a word about what we say, but it's just how we do it, and it reflects in the actions of what we're doing. And so, after this first year, we've, had a little bit of kind of holding pattern, as I said, as we embarked upon our city manager search, and now that city manager Orsic is in place, we are pedal to the metal. Wheels up, and we're headed forward and trying to get these things done. We've adjusted our timelines and set our goals and our initiatives, and so I'm excited about getting some of these things going and active, especially on that community piece, because I think that's an important part. Not only working on yourselves internally, but also helping enhance the community in ways that go beyond just our streets or our fire, our police, but also in helping individuals unlock the economic opportunities that exist here, because they do exist here. And if we give people options and tools to be able to actualize that, they'll want to stay here. And I think that's important for us as a community. Any questions that you have about that update?
Great update.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Next on the agenda, any old business that we have? I do not think we will have old business next time, which will be the election of the officers, and any new business. Cool beans. Chief, do you have anything that you wanted to share since the only ex-official one that's here?
I don't really have any new business. I will say that the fire department right now is fully staffed with 50 personnel. That we've hired probably 22 people since the beginning of 2021. So we have a very different staff than we had a few years ago. And now the challenge is getting everybody up to speed on Sandusky itself and everything they need to be trained on. So I don't believe, unless somebody unforeseen leaves, that we should have to hire anyone in the next year or two. But you never know. It's a pretty competitive market out there for police and firefighters right now. So a lot more competitive than, or a lot less competitive than when I was testing. So guys can kind of come and go as they please from other departments. So that's.
Fully staffed is a good thing to hear. And I did a round robin over the course of the summer at our different fire stations and connecting with our staff there. It was great conversations, great engagement. I think that, being able to kind of connect with them on that human level and get to see their passion and their motivations for doing what they do and the level actually of investment and care that they have in the community. And I think that it being able to help that come through and being able to say that, it's like, that was one of the big things in the messages that I got about it, is that they care. Some of them may not live here, but they care about the community and that they're serving, and they do see it as a privilege. And so I think that's reflective of your leadership, and appreciate that. And it was definitely a good time connecting with everyone in all the station houses.
Well, they're definitely at home there.
They shop like it. When you see them in the grocery store, they shop like it.
All right. So if anyone have anything else, we will.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no.